Salam alaikum and hello everyone. My name is Jason King and I'm the principal at Regent International School. And it's my pleasure this afternoon to be speaking to you from Facebook and live on our Facebook feed. So if you just didn't quite get that, my name is Jason King. I'm the principal at Regent International School. And I feel particularly privileged, proud, and passionate to be with you this afternoon to talk about the dynamic and exciting phase that Regent International School is in at this particular time. And for the next 20 or 25 minutes, I'm just going to give you some sound bites about some of the exciting things that are going on here at Regent, specifically around our GCSE, BTEC program in terms of years 10 and 11. And we are also starting our A-level program, but that will be in the following academic year. So if you're interested in the A-level program specifically, I'm not going to be speaking about that at this point today, but the focus is around year 10 and year 11. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the school and where we are really. As I said, we're in this really exciting phase at the moment. And I want to talk about our mission and the mission for our school over the next few years specifically and going forward for our young people. There's some key elements in our mission that I really want you to see. Now, in terms of the presentation this afternoon, you should see me, okay, and you should also be able to see the presentation slides at the side as I talk through that. So hopefully you can see that. So part of our mission, as you'll see on the screen here, is empowering people. There's some key words for me, 3 key words that are really important, okay? Empowering, innovative, and inspirational. Now, you see the quote there in terms of our mission here at Fortes Education, and that's part of the whole family. And as you're aware, we have nurseries, we also have 2 schools currently, and we're continuing to expand and to grow the success of the company due to the success of our parents and why they like to come here. So that empowering and ensuring that eventually when those young people become 17, 18-year-old and they go on to university, they are not just successful in their academics and their knowledge, they are graduating from our school and from Fortes as successful young gentlemen and young ladies. And that character is so important as part of that. So this afternoon, I'm going to talk a little bit about specifically year 10 and year 11 and what we're offering in terms of our GCSEs and IGCSE, and it's also BTEC program. But as part of that, also what we do in addition to that, okay, that academic program is only the start, okay? There's so much more in terms of how we're enriched in our positive education, in terms of the students flourishing forward, really ensuring that they're in that place to be successful in life. So part of our mission also links to our vision, okay? And the next slide you'll see in front of you it talks about that nurturing, what we do with our children from when they join us, and they can join us in nursery from 45 days old all the way up to 18 years old. And you see there, nurturing the next generation of change makers for a better tomorrow. And that, for me, is so important in terms of that change. Students today, we're in a very challenging time in the world at the moment in terms of the pandemic. But what are we doing to continue to stay ahead of the curve? What is Regent doing to ensure that the young people that join us here will be those change makers of the future, will be those leaders of the future? And part of that is to think differently, but part of that is to be disruptive. And we are disruptive here. We are consistently and continually looking to be innovation all on a day-to-day basis as part of that process. But at the same time, making sure that those students are cared for, okay, and they feel valued. And like I said, as well as being successfully academically, they are graduating and moving on to their next phase in life when they do have done their A-levels and going on to university as successful young men and young ladies. So part of today is just to sort of give you a little lens into where we are and what we're doing in this next phase at Regent International School. We are in a point where currently we have our year 7s and year 8s. Next year we'll be progressing into year 9, year 10 and year 11, and then on to year 12 and year 13. And why are we doing that? And this is really important to me and important for you to know this in terms of we are expanding, okay, and we're expanding because of the support of our parents. Our parents were getting to year 5 and year 6 and thinking, we don't want to go anywhere. We want to continue at Regent because of the success of their sons and daughters and what they've been doing. So as a commitment to our parents and a commitment from our board and our owners, the investment in the school in terms of the facilities, but also investment in getting the right people. We are in that journey now to ensure that the young people that are with us now and the young people that join us going forward are in the right place. They have the right education to ensure they're doing the right things to be successful in their lives. So part of that at year 10 and year 11 specifically is linked to the qualifications that they will be undertaking. So here at Regent International School, we have multiple pathways for them to consider, bespoke to their particular needs. Students join us and they join us at different levels. They may be here, they may be here, but what is important, they are being stretched wherever they are. And part of that stretch and challenge that we do here with the outstanding teaching team that we have is to ensure that they have the right qualifications as part of that journey. Qualifications that allow them to make that next step. Crucially, okay, those qualifications sit above what's underneath in terms of that well-being part. And I talked about that right at the beginning. Our positive education approach, what we do with the children here, how we make them feel, ensuring that they're building their character as they move forward, really supports the fact that they can then do well in their studies. Ask yourself this question. Do your children want to come to school every day? Do they wake up and they're excited to come to school? I know Regent children are, I see them on the gate in the morning. Their eyes are wide, they're hungry to learn more, and they're excited to come to school. They're excited because of who's in school. They're being inspired by their teachers. They're being inspired by the environment that they have. So all of that puts them in that process, okay? So those qualifications that we'll be looking at specifically for our year 10s and year 11s are our IGCSEs and GCSEs, our BTECs, and then when they move in 2 years' time onto year 12 and year 13, then they'll also have the opportunity to do the A-level programs. What's important as part of that bespoke aspect is the fact that the IGCSEs and GCSEs are the same qualification. They may just be a little bit different, but ultimately they're the same moving forward. So to give you an example, one of the subjects we offer is geography. So we'll be opting for an international GCSE because ultimately we're in an international environment and we're not based specifically in the UK, but there's no difference in that. So the qualifications that we choose for our students are to ensure that it's relevant to them and relevant to their next stage in life. Our BTEC program, one thing that we are going to be doing next year, we are going to be running BTEC for everyone, specifically around the sports program. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get on to PE specifically. But those BTEC qualifications sit alongside the IGCSEs, and ultimately the skills that are required sometimes might be slightly different, but ultimately the qualification and the next steps and access to the next step is extremely important. So I wanted you today, outside of the information I'm giving you, because sometimes there's a lot of information to take on board, there's 3 important words that I want you to take away specifically from the presentation today, okay? And that is opportunity, risk, and belief. Now, part of that opportunity that I've talked about is that multitude of different pathways, making sure that through discussion and in partnership with yourself as parents and the students, trying to find that right pathway for your sons and daughters to be successful. And opportunities in the classroom, but also opportunities outside the classroom. What's happening in terms of that community outreach, what's happening in terms of charity work, what's happening in terms of leadership, those enhanced activities that we will be doing on a day-to-day basis outside of the classroom. Loads of opportunities for those students to flourish, okay, not just that academically, but in themselves. And part of life is taking risk. We want our students, and I see day to day, our students taking risks to ensure that they do then learn. Okay, sometimes we have to make mistakes to move forward and to make that that learning more deeper and more important as they go through their careers. So taking those risks, and we encourage students to take those risks, not to be scared to ask difficult questions and to ask the right questions so that they are being challenged and stretched on a day-to-day basis. And my last word, belief, is probably the most important. That context of ensuring that when a child comes to Regent International School, they are in a learning environment which is in a safe space and in a space where they are challenged, they're stretched, and they're excited about what they're doing on a day-to-day basis to ensure that they believe in themselves. They want to be successful. They want to be successful not just for their family, for their school, but also for themselves. They're proud to be doing what they're doing. So that belief is crucial. Now, saying all of that, okay, it's extremely important at year 10 and year 11, okay, when your child is sort of that 15, 16 years old, is to have some structure. Okay, so our curriculum at year 10 and 11 is very full and rich in terms of what we do. So just to give you an example, some examples of what we will be doing here at Regent International School next academic year, we have our core curriculum, we have the science, the maths, the English, and our Arabics in there for year 10 students. We also have 3 other areas: languages and humanities. Languages now, as we know, computing, the digital language is so important in our today's world. So that aspect, and one of our signature programs that I'm going to talk about shortly, looks at that STEAM element. What are we going to be able to do to ensure that the child, your sons and daughters, is prepared for that future? And sometimes that may mean that they don't have to do computing as a GCSE, but there's an option there, okay? Because ultimately what they are doing here on a day-to-day basis from year 4 here at Regent, they start to do coding, they're looking at aspects to ensure that they're ready for those academic subjects when they do reach that year 10 level. So computing, French, geography, history, business, those aspects are vital in terms of having that wide variety of options available to them in the languages and humanities. The arts equally. We have a fantastic maker space here at Regent International School where design technology sits at the center of that. I'm going to talk also about our project-based learning shortly. Okay, and part of that is using the facilities from laser cutters, from CAD computing design to ensure that our students are exposed to different aspects of the curriculum so that they can make the right choices. And some of our students, like I said at the beginning, have different skills and different attributes. So that may be in art, that may be in music. So those options are there for them to have that ability to choose. And I mentioned PE and the BTEC level 2. So we are the first school in Dubai to be offering BTEC level 2 sport to all of the students. And part of, particularly in the lockdown, as many of us have probably seen, you know, sometimes ensuring we get regular exercise has been vitally important. Diet, nutrition, exercise, all of those factors are important for our community here. And ensuring that our students then have a qualification that come out of that. We'll be running the BTEC level 2 sport program for all of our students in year 10, which gives them that fuller picture in terms of diet, nutrition, as well as exercise. So not just they're doing PE during the 2-3 times a week, but they're also going to be working towards a qualification. Our Muslim students will be continuing with their Islamic studies, and then we have an extremely rich positive education, moral education program that we do here to ensure that their character, their whole person is developed. So like I said right at the beginning, they're not just academically ready to move on, they are ready as an individual to step into the next phase of their life as a successful young man and young lady. So that curriculum in terms of year 10 and 11 also looks at different aspects as well. Okay, so part of you'll see in my next slide, and there's a couple of questions coming in here, and I did say at the beginning, so as questions come in, please feel free to drop those questions. I can see them popping up on my screen as I speak. So a question here coming in, thank you, is physics, chemistry, biology not offered as separate GCSEs, or has it always been under one subject of science? So the majority of British schools here, okay, in Dubai and in the UK do science, okay, as a whole subject, but within that subject, that time is split. You saw on my slide, it says science, but that time is split between physics, biology, and chemistry, which means then when students then step up to the next level, they then want to go into medicine, they can then choose their individual sciences, which they would do at A level. And the way that we structure the curriculum here at Regent is to ensure that no student is disadvantaged. So the core is there. So if they want to go on to do medicine or engineering, they have the science in there to be able to do that. If they want to go on to read English, okay, or they want to do mathematics, the core is done at the year 10 level. So in terms of students who may want to go on to study medicine, as long as they're reaching the right academic level at the end of year 11, for our science, where they'd be doing, again, physics, biology, and chemistry, and that would be clear to our parents, then that's the same as if they did the separate individual sciences. So there's no difference in that respect. And it just brings up another question that one parent has also asked about those choices. So if a parent, if a student was decided not to do business studies, as an example, at GCSE, but later on at A level wanted to pick that up again, there's no issue with that, okay? What we ensure is that the curriculum is set so that any student is not disadvantaged later on into their options at year 12 and year 13. Naturally, like I've just said, if they want to go on to do medicine, they must do science, and they must choose sciences at the A level. But that's done because we're already offering it. Okay, if they don't do business studies at GCSE and they want to pick up business studies at A level, then as long as academically they're at the right point, then they would be able to do that. So thank you for that question. So there's a couple of points that I've already talked about on the slide that's in front of you now. But one aspect I haven't touched on is the facilities, and also is the staff. For any school, I've been involved now in education for nearly over 30 years, and I've been involved in senior leadership and run many schools now for over 25 years across the world. And what I've seen, okay, and continue to see, it is about the people, okay, all the time. People. Getting the right people is so crucial. And as I know many parents probably listening to this sort of message this afternoon, some schools there's quite a large turnover in terms of teachers. So what are we doing at Fortes, but also at Regent, and to ensure that doesn't happen? Because those inspirational teachers need to stay with us. So part of what we do is we ensure that there is that succession plan in place, there is that development. So those great teachers that you see day to day, and our parents at Regent currently see, they do stay with us because they are valued, and they're looked after, and they're also stretched in terms of their own career. There's always a next step up. So getting the right people is so crucial, and part of my role is to do that. And then linked to the facilities, just as facilities came up there, but also some question from a parents linked to activities as well. So again, I said right at the beginning, our board and our owners are extremely committed, because of what the parents have said about the school, to continue that expansion. Part of that expansion as we grow is to ensure that facilities and also activities grow with that. So we are expanding to another floor here at Regent. Part of that will be some more innovative spaces, okay, which will then involve different types of activities. So one aspect we'll be looking at will be Studio X. We will currently have a Lab X here at Regent, which looks at our coding, our robotics areas. And next year on the third floor, there will be a Studio X, which steps up to the next level in terms of what would be more appropriate for the senior level of students. And also in terms of those places, the makerspace I've already talked about, making sure that there's opportunities for the students to discover different aspects of their skills as they move up particularly from sort of year 7, 8, 9 into year 10 and 11. So those facilities are there, sports facilities, performing arts space, different aspects in terms of our new library extension, in terms of what we're doing there to ensure that the spaces for the students' environment is crucial, so they're able to collaborate and move forward as part of their journey here with us. There's a couple of questions just sort of coming up there, and I'll come back to that one shortly. So in terms of staff, we're getting the right people. In terms of facilities, if you do see Regent, and part of today, hopefully we'll want you to come and visit us. And I encourage you to come and see the school in action. Because when people do talk about schools, or you see websites, that's only words. Sometimes you have to see it happening. And I really encourage you to come and join us and visit us and see it happening in action here. But those staff is important, the facilities are there, and that expansion is there to ensure that our students have all the opportunities to be successful as they move through their career at Regent. What's exactly the difference between IGCSE and BTEC? So the main difference is linked to the way it's taught, okay? So IGCSE or GCSE will have a syllabus, okay? And there will be exams and sometimes coursework associated with that. The BTEC works the same. So the academic level is the same, okay? The standard is the same, but the BTEC involves a bit more group work, collaborative work, where the students are actually working on projects, okay? And they would have to produce a project, which then will be marked as they go along the course. So for some of our students in the schools that I've led have gone on to do BTEC at level 3 and at year 12 and 13, and gone on to top universities across the world, achieving distinctions in the BTEC. And it's just a different way of working. And this is part of what we do extremely well here at Regent and at Fortes, is ensuring that we know the child. We know the child and are able to advise you as parents on the right pathway, to ensure that there's a clear stepping stone to the next level, and they can move on to the right university or employment as they go through their career. So talked about staff, talked about facilities. I think I answered that last question there that's just popped up. And part of the activities, well, there's another one come through now, that's great. So along with the GCSEs and A-levels, with Regents tying up with companies in UAE to get work experience. Simple answer to that is yes. There is a challenge naturally at the moment, okay, in terms of our work experience because of the pandemic, but already last year, okay, during the pandemic, we had a multitude of internships with some top companies in Dubai and the UAE, but also across the world, PwC, Deloitte, different aspects that we've partnered up with to ensure our students have experience, and they had experience virtually with those organizations, but at the point where we hopefully at some point move away from some of the restrictions that we have in place, those opportunities will turn into actual work experience on site with those companies. Other hospitals, hospitality organizations that we work with, some hotel chains here. So those students who are doing GCSEs or A-levels, okay, as part of one of our signature programs is named Careers Rising, and seeing that journey from our students from as young as year 6 going all the way up, having those experiences of working in the real world and understanding what that looks like. And sometimes it may be, particularly for our older ones, it's not always about if I want to be a doctor, I need to work in a hospital and do that experience. It may be more about, okay, I need to experience work. So sometimes the work experience isn't about necessarily what you're going to be doing eventually as a career. Sometimes it's about an experience of work. But we've been really fortunate through our contacts to enable some of our students to have access to some of those top companies in the UAE and across the world as part of our work experience program. So that would form part of the year 10 and year 11 curriculum. Also as part of that is that project-based learning. Okay, so the project-based learning that we do on Key Stage 3, okay, in year 7, 8 and 9, that makerspace element also continues up through the school, but also in terms of a qualification. So there's some higher project qualifications and extended project qualifications that the students do to get them to think and get them ready for university, to understand the skills of research, being able to reference things correctly, making sure they're clear about their sources. So as well as the solid foundation of the curriculum that they would be following here, there's all these additional elements that are part of that. Okay, now being, I suppose, future ready is about having those active minds. So I've touched on a few of these things, but again, a unique element to what we do at Fortes Education, but also at Regent International School, is our signature programs. And we have, at Regent, we have 6 main signature programs that I'll just talk you through briefly here, but these sit as an enrichment and enhancement to what the quality of what the students receive on a day-to-day basis. I've talked briefly about our positive education ethos, and it's so important on a day-to-day basis. Relationships, what people are doing, what the children are experiencing in school and around school. Okay, how are they feeling in themselves? Like I said, in terms of that well-being element. Okay, if they're not happy, they're not going to be successful. Okay, if they get up in the morning and they're eager to come to school and they're hungry, then they're going to enjoy that experience. Making sure that learning environment is a positive one, and they're challenged as part of that. And positive education isn't about being positive all the time. It's also about ensuring that students are guided in the right ways and ensuring that they are able to develop those skills and attributes. And I won't go into detail now, but there's skills, there's 24 character strengths that we focus on during the year to ensure that our students sort of develop an all-rounded aspect for themselves in terms of their own character as they grow. So that sits at the foundation. That's part of our DNA that sits on a day-to-day basis, how we interact and how we engage with all of the community. Second one on there is STEAM and project-based learning. I think you hear a lot of these acronyms, okay, and you hear a lot of schools talking about STEAM, project-based learning, but what does it actually look like? Okay, and that's why I encourage you to come and visit us here at Regent so you can see that. But just to sort of give you a bit of a taster, what we've done here, we've redefined the T in STEAM. Okay, that technology element, that innovation element that goes on day to day to get those children to think differently. That's what we're doing, not just in terms of use of computers, robotics, and those aspects, but actually looking at what we're doing in the classroom on a day-to-day basis, linked to English, maths, science. Okay, getting them to think in a different way, and again to experiment, take those risks as part of that process. Specifically in our year 7, 8 and 9 program currently, we're doing some project-based learning where all of the subjects are accounted for and students are producing something, actually producing an object, which has involved them to be able to collaborate with each other, be able to find out knowledge about some specific elements, and to produce an actual object, which then has involved increasing their knowledge, but also increasing their skills. So part of that you would see if you come down and visit us here in our maker space. I talked briefly also about our performing arts concentration. Okay, we hear all the time around the world, yes, we're short of scientists and mathematicians, but there's an element of that performing arts and the arts element that sometimes is missing in some schools. And so what we do here, we give our students the opportunity to express themselves. And that doesn't mean that they need to do art or music at GCSE, which they can do. They have opportunities to be part of the school shows. They have opportunities to perform in public, but also they have an opportunity to do stuff within their classes and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis to ensure that they're able to articulate. And so what's so important today, as well as that knowledge and being able to know things, it's also being able to articulate things in the right way. So we encourage that confidence for them to do that. At the moment at Regent, okay, we are currently still doing, despite the pandemic, we have our virtual performing arts squads that are happening after school, and students are online. They're doing a variety of different performance things, practicing narratives, monologues, and we're putting those things together as we move forward. So that's in terms of our performing arts and a dedicated space for that. Another question has come in now. Can my child opt for an American university after completing year 13? Do you provide career guidance for university? So yes is on both counts. So in terms of American universities, I've worked with many students that have gone to the US, okay, and I've worked with many students who've gone to MIT, Harvard, Yale, the top universities, but just even other universities across the States. So American universities, number one, recognize British qualifications in terms of GCSEs and A-levels, and part of that process we support the students with. Okay, so part of our Career Rising sort of signature program looks at the career guidance as young as our year 6s going into year 7. What are they doing in terms of preparation for writing about themselves, writing a CV eventually, and what are they doing when they get through the school into years 10, 11, 12 and 13 in terms of those interviews? How are we preparing them for that? So we have a dedicated careers counsellor for that, okay, but obviously there's a program within school that supports our children to make the right choice, and also supports parents in helping them make that right choice. Even to extend in terms of support, in terms of scholarships to universities. So we have links with certain universities. We know relevant admissions tutors. So in terms of sometimes insight information can be useful in terms of trying to ensure that if there's certain aspects that the university does expect from a student, then ultimately we're ahead of the game. And so that guidance as part of that is important. Mock interviews, all of those things would be happening at the senior year end. But in terms of whether it's a US university, UK university, Indian university, South African, Australian, the system, the British system, in terms of the qualifications, those students, and I've seen in my career, particularly in the Middle East over the last 20 years, students go all over the world. Okay, and we would support them as part of that. Thank you for that question. Great question. So that's going on to continue the signature program. So on to my next slide. Just another, I've talked about 3 already. And this is interesting, particularly, again, I talked about investment, and I've talked about a commitment from our board to ensure that the school and the opportunities, those students have them, okay? And sometimes those opportunities do cost money, and we want to ensure at Regent that those opportunities are there to ensure that they are ready for the future. So we've experimented over the last couple of years with our virtual and basically VR and AR technology to the extent that next year, if students are doing certain aspects in science, for example, they will be able to then borrow headsets to enhance that experience. About they were looking at the heart and the functioning of the heart. There will be certain areas around the school where they'll be able to then borrow the relevant VR goggles and go and look at, okay, let's get inside the heart. What does it look like if I'm blood and I'm flowing through the heart? So that element is also there to enhance the learning process in terms of our VR and AR technology. And that leads on from the expansion of our library media centre, the learning resource centre there, to ensure that that's in place. One of the question earlier was linked to the facilities and activities. So our extracurricular and enrichment program is extensive. And if we don't do it, then we will do it. Okay, if I give you an example of if the students have come to me, I remember last year, some of the students came to me and said, look, okay, we want to look at running. In this case, it was a girls' rugby team, and ultimately there was enough interest. One of our members of staff was really keen to do that and take it on board, and that happened. Okay, another student came forward linked to technology and robotics, and wanted to run something specifically around coding and use of Python programming, which is obviously quite high level program. Again, we were able to provide the opportunities. But outside of that, we are doing all of the aspects to ensure that, like I said, academics are important. They are there, the foundation, but what else? What else can be added to that as part of that process? And despite the pandemic, we haven't sat still here at Fortes and at Regent. We are continuing to think differently. Okay, we're continuing to look at other ways to improve the processes. So through our development of Fortes AI, we are ahead of the game to ensure that your students, okay, the students currently here, are best prepared for that. So the technology we're using and developing all the time is real time. So students are doing some assessments. That's getting immediate feedback from the technology we're using, so they're able then to modify what they're doing. We're able to look at the gaps and be able to close the gaps as part of whether it's maths, science, English, humanities. And our students here at Regent have become particularly competent in using that technology as well. But equally, all the time, I can think of one of our students now in year 8 who is also being involved in developing some more programs for our Fortes AI. So it's developing all the time, and we're using our great team here, our IT team, to support that, but also our teaching team to ensure that we stay ahead of the curve. We stay ahead despite the pandemic. We've been fortunate here at Regent to be able to have the majority of our students in day to day, unless our parents were shielding at home. But ultimately, as part of that process, they are here, they're collaborating, and they're using technology to get that balance right. So that's our signature programs, which really sit beyond our basic academic program that we have here. Another question's come in. Thank you. As a rough projection, what will the teacher-student ratio be for GCSEs and A-levels? Very specific question. But in terms of the ratio, that will depend on what subjects are being offered. Ultimately, generally, in my experience over the last 20 years, specifically in the Middle East, some of our subjects, let's say the art subjects, sometimes are less students in the class compared to the teacher. We wouldn't, in terms of an option subject, we wouldn't be going above sort of 20 in terms of the subject itself, but ultimately in terms of if it's in English, maths or science, sometimes we'd have sets and numbers would be less as well. Okay, but again, we're consistently looking at what's best for the children. So because of the pandemic, as an example, we've had, because of the use of Fortes AI, we've had students who have been, more students have been able to access that. So the teacher's been there as a facilitator and the students have been able to be online. So you can reach out to more people. I think outside of the question whether it's high or low in terms of student-teacher ratio, the important thing is the quality of the delivery and that personalization with the student in place. So again, part of our innovation here at Fortes, we have extremely rigorous and accurate systems in terms of our parents' partnership, in terms of our VLE platform, where parents will be able to see and can see what's happening on a day-to-day basis with their child. So you're able to monitor that learning in real time. Okay, so just on to my last slide. I'm nearly towards the end of me speaking. I'm hopefully you're still listening and haven't been put off too much by waiting on, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here. Can my child, so the question is coming, can my child get into any Indian university after year 13? So yes, this is a simple question. And to ensure that if they're following the British curriculum that we follow here, the GCSEs and the A-levels, then again, it's for us, it's all about the advice that child is getting. So if you have a specific goal in terms of an Indian university that you wish your child to go to, then ultimately we almost work backwards and say, right, if you want to go to Bangalore University and to study computer engineering, what does that look like? What do you actually need to get there? What are the steps to do that? Okay, and specifically we'll work on that as the child gets particularly the higher grades, so sort of year 11, 12 and 13. But ultimately, children who follow her at Regent and complete and follow the British curriculum can go anywhere around the world to any university. We ensure, like I said in the beginning here, we ensure that they have that support network, so that they're making the right choice, and also together with you as parents, we ensure that you're aware and you're given all the options. Because again, at the moment, in terms of the pandemic, as we know, many universities are online, and many students are currently at home, but they may be at university in the US, but they could be in Dubai, or they could be in India, or wherever that may be. So trying to make sure that we get the right support to you as the parent, for the right advice, and to the students, so that they have the right pathway to move on to any university. Okay, so I've mentioned quite a lot today, and quite a lot of information I've sort of given to you. But I think I'll come back to those three words really: opportunity, risk, and belief. And if you are currently a parent at Regent, okay, you know what I'm talking about. You know why this school is so successful, why on a day-to-day basis you feel that you're coming to an extension of your family, because that care, that well-being side of things is so important to us. Okay, those relationships are so important, and if that's right, then the child is going to become more successful. And getting it right at the beginning and moving up as they move through the careers into now what I've been talking about today, GCSEs and A-levels, is so crucial, and having the right people there to support as part of that process. So opportunities are there here. I've talked about the curriculum. That's solid. It gives everybody a basis to move forward, but it's beyond that. Okay, so those other events that we do here, you know, the TEDx events, the debating, the other qualifications we're offering, the community work, the outreach work, the work experience, all of those additional stuff that's going on. The fact that we're working with companies across the world. I've talked about PwC, Deloitte, hospitality hotels here in Dubai. Those links are so important for us, but also important for your children. Taking the risks as they go through are important, and making that next step, but doing it together, making sure they're feeling in their safe place, and ultimately believing. You believe in your children. We believe in your children. They need to believe in themselves so they are successful. There's a couple of just last questions coming through just before I finish off for today. So if applying for an American university, would it be better to pursue the IGCSE and A-levels or BTEC? Again, it would depend on your child and depend on their skill set and what, and ultimately how successful they would do in either the BTEC or A-levels and IGCSE. So, and we work with parents to ensure that they're on that right pathway. Essentially, every child, whether they do BTEC or IGCSE enabled can access an American university. But the support and guidance to do that is crucial. Okay, so again, if you're a parent at Regent now, please come and speak to us. Okay, if you're not a parent, then part of what I really encourage you to do is to come and look at the great school that we have here, the great people that we have here, and the great students that we have here, that ultimately define why now the school is expanding to take on GCSEs and A levels to produce those successful young men and young ladies going forward. And one of the unique aspects for us in terms of a tour is you will, myself, my senior leadership team, specifically linked to secondary, Mr. Steve Dobson, who's our head of Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3, or myself would specifically want to talk about the secondary side of things. But all of my team here, all of my SLT team, we work really collaboratively together, okay? What I know, they know, okay? And in terms of ensuring that if you're deciding on a school now, okay, come and see us, because I'm sure as soon as you step into this building, okay, you will know why our parents, our current parents, want their children to remain here all the way through to 18. So there's a couple of questions still coming in. I'm just going to answer some of those. Just looking at one there. What year will the students be choosing their options? So yeah, and it says year 9s, and that's correct. So 14 years old, year 9 is when they would choose their options, and they would start the GCSE program in year 10. And the GCSE program, the IGCSE program, or BTEC level 2 is 2 years, 2-year program. So year 10 and 11, and then our A-level program and BTEC level 3 program starts from year 12 and year 13, again for 2 years. Another question, I think I answered this earlier, but thank you for the question. What is the difference in IGCSE and GCSE? No difference in terms of the academic rigor and level, and moving forward to the next phase. If you do the IGCSE in science and then wanted to do IGCSE A-level, there's not a problem. IGCSE geography at GCSE, A-level geography, not a problem. Ultimately, it's just linked to the I stands for international. So to give you a discrete example, IGCSE geography would talk about the world and might talk about the Middle East, China, Asia, etc., where we are now, where GCSE geography would talk about specifically the UK. And if anybody knows the UK, so it might mention things like roundabouts, okay, or certain aspects, hamlets and villages and stuff, which may not always, or students may not always be familiar with terminology. So the I stands for international, but in terms of level and next steps, there's no difference at all. And again, we choose the qualifications to be appropriate for the student body that we have here, okay, and that's what we've done for the next academic year going forward. Okay, a couple of other questions just before I finish off. Who will be the examining board for GCSEs and A levels? So in the UK, there are a number of examination boards, and there's no real difference between one to the other. The standard is the same, but we have certain relationships here, and also we feel that some of the, whether it's GCSEs or A levels, will offer better rigor to ensure that the students have the right step when they go to university. So we do a combination of Cambridge, we do a combination of Pearson or EdXL, the London examination boards. We also we do some qualifications linked to AQA as well, and also OCR as well. So we cover most of the exam boards, but again, depending on the subject, we would choose the appropriate board for the students to be as successful as they can be in the context that we're in here, okay? And some exam boards are more appropriate to being in the UK than they would be into the international context. And equally, the support that would be given to us as the teachers, but also the school, but also you as parents. And I know Cambridge and Pearson specifically are very good in terms of that support network. Are you providing, another question, are you providing textile designing at Regent in year 10 as part of DT? Yes, so what we'll be offering is DT, okay? There's certain elements of it, okay? So you've got resistant materials, you've got textiles, so there's a variety of different elements. So if you wanted to find out more specifically about that, come and see us, and we can talk more linked to the textiles side of things, okay? And I've seen, you know, in my time here, people going on to university here to do fashion design, you know, based on those qualifications. How do you help the children in their assessments? Are they being practiced if the child finds difficulties? So I talked a little bit earlier about how we have our Fortes AI, and we also have our regular assessments that happen. That's happening in real time. So children are continually being assessed in the right environment, and where there are gaps, okay, that seem to appear, if they're not working to the expected level, we are always stretching them to work beyond their expected level and beyond the curriculum expected level. So if there are gaps, then we know it real time. We're not finding out, and you as parents aren't finding out in a parents' evening that happens in November where there was difficulties for the child in September. So as soon as those gaps are identified, and that's the sort of the amazing side of what we're doing with the Fortes AI here, is that we know that in real time, and as a result we can look at closing the gap. So the students then would have certain support from the technology we have to ensure that they are practicing additional questions, or if there's certain concepts that they're not familiar with, and again the support network for the students. Our inclusion team here is there to support the students so they understand and they can then move forward and move on. And one of the things that, it's not a question here, but one of the things that I wanted to mention is in terms of the support for you as parents. Choosing a school is difficult, it's scary, okay? It's scary trying to find the right school for your child, particularly in Dubai, when there's so many aspects out there. There's so many, I suppose I would put bells and whistles sometimes in terms of things look good, but are they actually good inside? Okay, and that's why I really encourage you, although a building may have a 50-meter swimming pool and a TV and radio station, what's actually happening inside? Would your child and daughter actually have access to that and be exposed to it? What's important? What is important is the people, okay? From the parents, the students, and the teachers. And I know, like I said at the beginning, really, if you step foot in Regent, okay, as soon as you step foot here, you will appreciate why so many of our families are so happy here and want to continue to be here and their child to be here until they graduate in year 13. And linked to that, and linked to the parent support, okay, our parent partnership is so important. That's why we're doing things like this, okay, and doing aspects where you can reach out to us, giving you information so then you can make the right choices. So a lot of information today. I appreciate you staying on. If you've stayed on for the 50 odd minutes that we're still on now, but if you're still here, okay, and you want to experience what the great school we have here at Regent, please look at the details. Please sign on to come and see us, and it would be my pleasure to show you Regent and show you the great school that we have here. Take care, keep safe, keep well, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Masalama. Bye-bye.